before I ask the questions, that Perry pretty much gave me all the questions that I'm going to be asking today, and I put it all in the description to this event, so I guess everyone knows what I'm going to be asking. But before I ask those questions, maybe we can go around and do quick intros of who are you, what do you do? And Esther, would you like to go first?
I need to think about this. Who am I? I'm just kidding. Hi, everybody. My name is Esther Olu. I am a cosmetic chemist. I specifically specialize in skincare and hair care formulations. I'm currently working in the contract manufacturing sector. I also do some science communication on Instagram and Twitter at the Mountain Chemist. Nice to meet everybody.
I am Perry Romanowski, a longtime cosmetic chemist. I started in the industry in 1992. I worked on hair care brands, skincare brands. I worked for a corporation until 2006, where I started a blog called The Beauty Brains. It answers consumers' questions about cosmetic products without any marketing spin, or ideally. And I also have the website Chemist Corner, which teaches people how to make cosmetics.
Lolita, would you like to go next?
Hi, everyone. So good to see everyone here. I am Lolita. I'm a scientist. My background is in chemistry and biotech, and I've been in the beauty industry for almost a decade. I also make skincare content on Instagram and go by the handle Skin Chemi.
Cassandra, would you like to go next?
Sure. I am Cassandra Celestin, the beauty chemist. I am a cosmetic chemist. I'm a complete chemist, cosmetic chemist, as well as a cosmetologist, a licensed cosmetologist, a trichologist, makeup artist. I own a company called Beauty Alchemy Group. I've owned this this company for over a decade, where I consult in everything beauty, hair care, skincare, and skincare formulation, hair care formulation, and so on. And my name on Instagram is The Beauty Chemist.
And Gloria?
Hi, everyone. I'm Gloria Liu. I am half of Chemist Confessions. We started out both in skincare, working for a big corporation, and we started Chemist Confessions, an education account primarily on Instagram. Right now, we have our own brand, as well as continuing to do skincare chemistry education work, and we have recently come out with a book on it called Skincare Decoded, and I think that's it.
So I have just sorry.
I just want to say I bought the book. It's really cute.
Oh, thank you. All the drawings done by Victoria. I'm the non-artistic half of Chemist Confessions.
I also got the book, and I kept talking to my husband about how beautiful your graphics were.
Oh, thank you.
You guys have the best, cutest graphics ever, by the way.
I will relay all the messages to Victoria. All the credit goes to her.
It seems that Michelle might be on the Discord, but maybe in the wrong room. I guess I'll just ask my next question as you guys are answering, then I can talk her through getting onto this channel. You guys all know my questions, but the question that I'll ask is, as a cosmetic chemist coming online, looking for platforms to communicate, based on your experience, where should people be communicating? Where have you had the most success? Gloria, would you like to go first with this one?
Oh, sure. Chemist Confessions is primarily on Instagram. It's kind of what got us here today, but I will be honest, I struggle with the Instagram format a little bit, and 100% honest, we chose Instagram partially because I had a cat account on Instagram, so it's a platform we're familiar with, and we're very camera shy, so it just seemed easier to focus on writing rather than talking and whatnot. But I have found that recently we've spent a little bit more energy on the podcast, because I have found that it's difficult. Skin sign can be really difficult to communicate and be inviting for a lot of people. And I think having a conversation is a format that we're starting to like a lot more. So yeah, Instagram for me right now is sometimes it can be really hard to communicate the nuances that you want to, still keeping it short to the word limit and keep it fun at the same time. So that's why we do lean heavily on the graphics a lot. So that's kind of my experience.
Perry, what about you?
I think you have to experiment. There's when we first got into it, it was when blogs were out. In fact, we started in the beauty brands before even Facebook was around and before Twitter. So I'm old. The thing I really liked about blogs, and I still like about blogs, is that you're findable in search engines, and when people still use search engines to find out information. And as a science communicator, your goal really should be to outrank the nonsense that's out there with good science, because consumers don't know. So I still see a lot of value in blogs. Certainly, there is a lot of value in Instagram, and you can build up an audience rather quickly. I know TikTok is hot. I spend time on Twitter. And then, of course, people can have success with YouTube. I think the key is you got to find each one of these can work. You've got to find which outlet is the best for you. But there's still room for scientists to come in on any of these channels. It's just, and podcasts are great too. So there's still room for everyone. So you got to find what is the most interesting to you. I could say making videos takes a lot of work, a lot of time. Making podcasts and editing them, make them sound good, takes a little less time, but it still takes a lot of time. Things like Twitter, Instagram takes a little less time, although the way Skin Chemie does it, putting those infographics up certainly is not a short amount of time either. But as far as a time commitment goes, Twitter, Instagram are a little quicker than YouTube and podcasts.
Michelle, welcome. I guess I'll just give the mic to you next, and I'll give you two questions. So the first would be, can you give a quick intro? I feel like most people here know you, but just in case they don't. And then the second question is, for cosmetic chemists hoping to come online, based on your experience and where you've found success, where should people be communicating?
So hi, I'm Michelle, Lab Muffin Beauty Science. I am a blogger slash YouTuber slash Instagrammer slash I tried on TikTok and it turns out I'm not very good at it. And it takes a lot more effort. So I am like, I don't know, a failed TikToker. Yeah, so I've been blogging for about 10 years. I started in 2011. I started on Instagram in 2014 and I started YouTubing in 2017. Where you should go, I think the best advice I think I can give is go where you spend the most time. So if you spend a lot of time on Instagram, you'll start understanding how it works. And I think that's always the best thing to do, understand how the platform works, and then you'll be able to utilize it best and communicate best from there. So yeah, like Perry said, videos take for freaking ever. So I think on average, one of my videos takes 20 to 40 hours, depending on how easy it is. I guess 20 hours is like, if I've already done the research and I just need to turn it into a video, that's 20 hours. And then I guess the other 20 hours is if it's something where I have to do the research from scratch. So yeah, basically the way I end up doing a video is I write a blog post and then that turns into a video over the next 20 hours. So yeah, it's a big time suck, but it does also kind of mean that it's less competitive, if that makes sense. Like it's easier to stand out, but of course you have to invest that time because I guess not many people do invest that amount of time. Most people don't have that amount of time, to be honest. But yeah, it's a steeper learning curve. I personally find it quite satisfying though, and I really enjoy it, which is why I end up there. So I guess there's like this diagram, which is quite popular with entrepreneurs, I think, where there's 4 overlapping circles. And basically what you're trying to find is something where you're good at it, you enjoy it, the world needs it and people are willing to pay for it. And if you can find like the perfect mix of those, then that's like gold, and you should stay there for as long as you can.
And Michelle, you're a part of a podcast now too, aren't you? What's it called?
Yes, Skincare School. So this is a collaboration with me and one of the big beauty retailers, online retailers in Australia. It's only like a 12 episode run, so it's almost done. Episode 10 just went up. But yeah, honestly, they made it really easy because they already have a few podcasts going. So all I have to do is turn up and talk into a microphone. And by turn up, I mean like sit down at my computer and sit at the microphone they sent me. So I can't really speak to how hard it is to edit or any of the other stuff because I barely do anything with that. I think you and Perry can talk a lot about that.
Yeah, editing's a challenge. but I tell you, the videos that you do, they certainly, having tried to do some videos, it takes a lot of time.
And I would say that I'm also a failed TikToker. I got motivated to get on the platform, and then I was on the platform and it was just not for me. But Esther, are you still on TikTok? This next question is for you, but also, are you still on TikTok and have you been successful there?
So wait, so am I answering the first question about like that everyone else is asking? I mean answering?
Yes. And then also, are you still on TikTok and how are you liking that?
So I agree with what Michelle said about going to where you're most on. For me, I'm like I used to always be on Instagram, which is like why I started my platform on Instagram. And that actually took a lot of planning before I even started posting about it. And then I used my Twitter that people follow me on, that actually was my personal Twitter. And sometimes I would tweet about skincare, and then all of a sudden I kind of just blew up. So then my personal Twitter became like a science Twitter. So ever since then, I've kind of just been using both platforms for science communication. And then regarding TikTok, okay, so people keep following me on TikTok, but my account is private. I know, Jen, you're trying to get me on the platform, but I just can't do it. I think a lot of science communicators that have tried to go on the platform, they keep getting harassed, which is going to be like another topic that we can get into. They get harassed and berated by people that would rather like listen to misinformation than science communicators. So I only use TikTok to make my videos, which I then post onto Instagram, if that makes sense. So people have been seeing like my username for TikTok and have been trying to follow me on TikTok, but I don't have any videos that are public for viewing, if that makes sense. I just refuse to use TikTok because I don't think it's a good place for science communicators. But that's just my opinion.
So those reels that you have were 100% made on Instagram for Instagram. For some reason, I thought they were from TikTok. Now I know.
Oh no, I made them. I make them on TikTok because I don't really know how to use reels well, and then I upload it onto Instagram, if that makes sense.
That does.
Yeah.
Lolita, would you like to go next? Sure. So for me, I've only ever tried out Instagram, and I love making infographics for some weird reason. I don't know why. I enjoy it. So I feel like my followers like it, and I get encouraging messages, and I'm also like a visual learner, so it helps. And not to mention, I've also met so many of everyone here on the panel is so amazing, and I learned so much from your platform as well. So I just feel like Instagram resonated with me more than any other platform. I do have a Twitter account. I am not very active on Twitter, but yeah, I would say Instagram is where I found most of my success with communicating skincare and science.
And then last but not least, Cassandra.
Okay, so I've tried everything. I'm on everything, but I don't really use everything. So Twitter just doesn't work for me because I hate writing stuff really on the fly. When I write, I have to get focused on what I'm writing. And YouTube, I still have a YouTube channel, but I haven't posted anything in a couple of years. I'm really good at editing videos. So TikTok works for me now because it's easy to edit videos, but I actually don't edit my videos in TikTok. I use a real video editor to edit my video because I find it easy. I feel like TikTok is limiting and kind of gimmicky. So I do my videos there and then I upload them to TikTok and then I upload them to Instagram. A few years back, maybe like 6 years ago, I used to use Facebook, but I don't think anybody uses Facebook anymore. At least I don't. Even though it's connected to Instagram, it's just too much going on, too much social media. So right now, I would say I focus on Instagram first and TikTok. But you also have to understand that with everyone, it's going to be different because there are like 3 to 4 different styles of learning. And when I studied with my psychology degree for this, we talked about the styles of like visual, auditory, and kinesthetics, and also reading and writing. So for me, I'm very visual, and Instagram does that for me. It gives me those images that I need to see, and I connect to that. And I feel like with Clubhouse and Discord, more people are moving towards, auditory, with a platform that's like a podcast for many people to speak on. So everyone is a combination of visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is like touching and doing, and auditory is listening and speaking, and visual is seeing and reading. So you have a combination, and for me, I'm just more of a visual, so that works for me. And then when I look at the what Instagram gives you as far as feedback, I forgot what it's called, the feedback they give you as your market and what's doing well for you, what posts are doing well. I can always tell what my audience likes. My audience doesn't like when I speak a lot, when I put a lot of writing. They don't like that. My audience likes visual. It's like me. I don't know why, but that's when I get the most likes.
Interesting. I find that my audience, maybe because I'm the most passionate when I do it, likes when I go on giant diatribes. For myself, I guess I really like talking to people and learning from people. So the podcast was kind of a no-brainer. Or hosting conversations like these. I tried to make my own videos for YouTube, but I did not have the motivation to continue making the videos by myself. I feel like I'm not I don't seem authentic when I'm talking to the camera and it's just me, but when I'm in a conversation, I feel a lot more comfortable. So that's how I've kind of morphed my YouTube channel to host these conversations. And again, Discord to host these conversations. I did like Clubhouse for a while, but I just didn't like the exclusivity factor. And then I also like writing. So blogging and Instagram has been a good medium for myself personally. The next question was, what to communicate. And I feel like the answers might be kind of along the same lines. But Lolita, would you like to start this one? What to communicate as a cosmetic chemist coming online?
Sure. I mean, it really, I mean, you can communicate almost anything that you're studying or working on, as long as you find your own authentic way to communicate, whether you start with skincare basics or you talk about hair care or makeup or whatever it is in your field. I think if you find a authentic way to communicate with your audience, I would say, there's no right way to, everyone has our own. I have my own style. Michelle has her own style. Jen, you have your own style. We all have our own styles of communicating. And you just kind of experiment, trial and error to see, what your audience likes and just continue doing that. I wouldn't say there's like one right answer, but as long as you're authentic and as long as you're also communicating accurate information, because I think that responsibility is also on us as chemists. So, you're doing your research, and if you're unsure of something, that's okay. It's always, you can always ask your peers, or you can, do research online. I know, Jen, you talked so much about this on your platform about, accurate scientific communication, which is actually very hard. It's not an easy task. So I feel like ask the help that, if you ever need help, don't hesitate to reach out and, ask questions and just learn along the way. So I would say, yeah, just start whatever makes you feel comfortable, whether that's in your field or something you're learning. find your own authentic way to communicate.
Gloria, would you like to go next?
That's a really good question. Victoria and I joke that we probably have weekly or bi-weekly existential crisis on like, who is she? Who's the audience? Who are we trying to reach? I think at the end of the day, it's a good point. Try to be true to yourself. When we first started, it was very whimsical. We wrote about whatever we wanted. We didn't really think a lot about what people might want to see or what's helpful. And for us, we kind of let people messaging us and people writing in our comments kind of guide us in finding what's helpful for people. And a lot of times I find that it's very useful to just have a conversation with people. It's very difficult for me personally because I am a huge introvert, and it was really hard for me to engage with strangers online all the time. But at the end of the day, that really helped me find um, what's right. What's the right messaging we're trying to get across and how to be helpful. And I totally agree that it's hard, especially for social media, it's hard to be fun, engaging, and communicate the nuances of skincare science. And as we all know, there's a lot of gray areas there, but people aren't necessarily interested. But at the end of the day, we still have a responsibility to communicate that. So that's kind of my experience.
Cassandra, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
The question was what to communicate. As a cosmetic chemist coming online, what should people be communicating about?
What you're passionate about, and like Lolita said, have value to it, bring value to what you're communicating, and be authentic as well. I think if you bring value and you're authentic in what you're passionate about, then people will understand what your message, and your message will be heard and repeated. And I think that's important if the message is resonating with a lot of people. I also feel that you got to be accountable with your message. You have to make sure that you're sending out the right type of message for your audience, and that they understand what you're trying to say, because I know people, they're quick to judge, and you'll get backlash. So you have to be very clear and concise with your message as well. I'm done speaking.
Perry, would you like to go next?
Sure, and I agree with everything that people were saying. One thing I'd say, if I'm talking to you as the chemists out there, it's helpful to develop an expertise in some topic. Cosmetic chemistry is such a huge topic. There's so many myths to bust, and of course, busting myths is great, but you also don't want to become that say no to everything. I'd probably fall sometimes on the side of being too cynical about everything. I said it's just kind of my personality. And there's room in the marketplace for that. But the focus should be on educating people about whatever topic that you're really expert at. You can be a generalist for, because you're, as a cosmetic chemist, you should know more than your audience. But also, you should be deferring to maybe people who are more expert in certain things, and become an expert in something. If you want to be the expert in sunscreen and skincare and hair care, focus on that. It doesn't mean you can't talk about other topics, but I would find something to focus. And I would also say be prepared that some of the things that you're going to say is going to be met with some backlash, because there's a lot of people who profit off of misinformation, and they don't necessarily want people telling them things that they're propagating are not true. So be prepared for that.
Michelle, would you like to go next?
I guess I'm a bit unusual in that I come more from an education background than like a purely chemistry background. So yeah, I did a PhD in chemistry, but I've always been really interested in education itself, rather than specifically coming from chemistry and then trying to get into education. So in terms of the topics I choose, honestly, I don't even know how I choose them anymore. It's really more instinctive. And I think you can start to develop that sort of instinct as well, just by experimenting with a whole bunch of different content that you want to produce and then seeing what the reaction is to that. So I find feedback really useful. That's actually one of the hardest things about YouTube, I think, because you don't get real-time feedback. And like when you get to a certain point, the people who are loudest in comments are always people who have extreme opinions. Either they love it or they hate it, and you don't get you don't get a good grasp of what the average person sees. So yeah, I still teach more for that feedback. I feel like it keeps me in check in terms of getting correct feedback on stuff. So always listen to feedback. I think that's probably my number one advice. Experiment and yeah, just find what you enjoy doing and what gets good feedback, and then proceed based on that.
And finally, Esther.
So I agree with what everybody said here. I don't really have like a lot to add, but it's really just about like finding like your niche, like finding your style. For me, I like talking about topics, but I also like using meme. I love memes. Like people that like follow me, like no, I love memes. I love doing like reaction videos.
She is meme queen. That is
I
meme
love
queen.
your memes.
Yeah, like I love doing that. That's just my personality. Like people know that I like to joke around a lot. So aside from like educating and talking about cosmetic chemistry, I like putting it in a way where if let's say like a stranger was like on the street, I could show them this and they would understand like what I'm talking about. So you guys have probably seen that one video where it had like the Twilight music playing in the background about like everything being a chemical. So I like kind of pretty much talking about like how do I explain? I would say controversial topics, but in a very simple way. Whereas somebody might, try talking about a topic in a very complicated way. So I think it's about just finding your style and just sticking to that. Like Lolita was saying, there's just so many topics within this field that can be talked about. So it's really just finding like what you like and then just communicating that in a very effective way, in a very genuine way.
I think you guys had a lot of really great suggestions, from finding what you're passionate about to especially from Gloria, knowing your audience. This is something that I sometimes struggle with, especially also communicating in easy to understand way to your audience, where something might be understandable to me, and then I see in the comments that maybe it wasn't as understandable as I thought. Definitely a challenge, but something to think about when you're putting content out there. Now I have 2 more questions before I open up the questions to our audience to start asking questions. The next question is, how would you suggest cosmetic chemists, or maybe anyone coming online, how would you suggest that they deal with critics? Because you probably, unless you're lucky, but you'll probably deal with some critics out there. So what would be your suggestions to them? And Esther, would you like to go first for this one?
Yeah, so I surprisingly haven't dealt with like a lot of critics yet. I think there was one video that I posted so it did fine on Instagram, but there was one video that I reposted on Twitter, and then some people were kind of being pretty mean. Like it was about like the everything is a chemical, that video. So people were just like, oh, how does she have like degrees? Like how does she have an education in this field? Everybody knows that everything is a chemical, blah blah blah. And then instead of being very reactive and being negatively responding back, I kind of explained to them that no, not everybody knows that everything is a chemical, because if that was the case, then we wouldn't have to be continually debunking this myth. And also explained to them that, okay, sure, everything is a chemical, but then that becomes another thing, because then people think chemicals are toxic and all this other stuff. So I think once I began to explain to them why I made the video, they were kind of like, oh, thank you for educating me, blah, blah, blah. So one way is to educate your critics. Another way is, for some people, no matter what you say, they're not gonna be receptive to what you're saying. So if that's the case, block them. That's what I do. I block people very easily. I just don't. I think there are some people that are going to like your stuff, and there's people that are not going to like your stuff, and that's completely fine as long as you stay authentic to yourself and what you're trying to communicate to your audience. That's truly all that matters.
Lolita, would you like to go next?
Sure. I would agree with a lot of points that Esther made. There are, obviously when somebody disagrees with something that you post, you could try to educate them, try to make them see your point of view, also try to understand what they're saying, but sometimes some people are just so ingrained in their opinions that no matter what you say, it's not going to change their opinion. Like, for example, if I say I don't believe in clean beauty, that there's people out there who just that's all they believe in. And you're just never going to see eye to eye with them, no matter how many citations you give them, no matter how long your responses are. It just doesn't matter. So in that case, just don't waste your time and energy. Let it be, move on, and just enjoy creating content. And don't take a lot of strangers like critiques personally. I know sometimes it gets, a lot of us take it super personally because they start attacking our degrees or attacking us personally. Or I've had some people saying, like, did you really go to school for chemistry, or you don't know anything, blah blah blah. But I would say just such comments that get personal, you don't need to use your time and energy to respond to them. So choose your, pick your battles, as they say.
Cassandra, would you like to go next?
Sure. I started in the beauty industry at a very young age. I started working in a hair salon as an assistant when I was 14. So I was a stylist before I became a chemist. And the thing with dealing with people, it can really wear and tear on you. I know myself personally, after getting my license in cosmetology and having a salon and dealing with customers and clients, customer service, and just talking to them all the time, and them just always dumping their issues on me and their views, their perspective on lives, the things I didn't really agree with. And it really got to me where I had to go and actually go and get a degree outside my field, psychology, and just figure out why people think the way they think. And even having worked in that field a little bit after I got my master's, and learning how to deal better with people, because I'm an empath and I take on a lot of issues that people dump on me. So I'm very sensitive. I haven't really encountered any type of criticism on Instagram or social media. I have in real life, working, as a stylist, and that itself is even harder because you have people in your face criticizing you, and that can take a toll on you. But like I said, I learned how to deal with that by just understanding that people have their issues and they will project onto you, and they want to be closed-minded because that's just how they are, and it makes them happy. And being on social media, they're hiding behind, especially like Instagram or Twitter, they're hiding behind this whole tool, this device thing, and you don't see their face, and they're not going back and forth, so they can say whatever they want, they can be whoever they want. And I feel like a lot of people take advantage of that because it gives them the power that they really don't have in life. So when I think about that, I also think about, okay, you know what, like Lolita just said, don't take it personal. People are just going to have their opinions, whether it's something you like or you don't like, or harsh or not harsh. You just, say, okay, I understand how you feel, and, I'm done with this topic. And if it goes too far, like Esther says, block them. I'm done speaking.
Snaps, girl. You said that so well.
Gloria, what do you think about this?
Uh, I think for me, it's important to kind of categorize the type of criticism you're getting. There are times that we definitely post something too fast and we have a typo or something that's a little misrepresented. There are people that can be a little mean about it, but at the end of the day, we made a mistake, so just own up, fix it, move on. And then there are the types that want to challenge you and be negative. And we typically just try to kill them with kindness, because it's not about, for me, it's not necessarily about changing this person's mind. It's about other people in the community seeing what you say to your critics. I think that's a very important part of who you are as well. And then the last category is the people that bring no value whatsoever to your life, agree with what everyone else is saying. They want to be nasty just to be nasty, or they are, for me, what really gets on my nerve and gets a block for me is when they start attacking other people in the community, because we really believe in that. We're trying to make skincare science inviting and trying to get people to just trying to be helpful. So when people are actively attacking people in the comments, that is not the type of community that we want to foster. And I really agree with Cassandra Esther says, is that sometimes it's hard not to let that get to you. Like I mentioned before, I already have a hard time finding strangers, and sometimes when that kind of engagement isn't very pleasant, it can bring you down. And honestly, sometimes just know when to walk away. It's easy to get sucked into it. I have been involved in many online fights that, thinking back, it didn't bring any value to my life. It didn't really bring any value to my community, and it's just a waste of time, and just doesn't put me in good mood, doesn't help me do good work. So yeah, know when to walk away.
And Michelle?
Yeah, I could probably learn better to know when to walk away as well. I end up like going down a lot of rabbit holes where I'm like, why am I doing this with my, one life? So yeah, I think also what Gloria said about categorizing this type of criticism, I think that's really important as well. So especially on YouTube, YouTube is extremely harsh, especially if you're female, because random people will just stumble onto your video, and it's so anonymous as well. Like it's not as much like Instagram where people follow you and then they see your stuff. It's your stuff will show up everywhere, and it's your face. And yeah, you'll just get stuff about your appearance all the time. So yeah, categorizing the type of criticism is important, because sometimes it is valid. If it's something that's actually fact-based, if it's a common misconception, I feel like I need to respond to that, because other people will be thinking the same thing. I think my strategy for dealing with criticism, and this is going to be very different from other people based on your type of content. I preempt what the common counter arguments are, and then I address them in the post itself. So I kind of preempt what's going to happen. And I think this is partly because, firstly, I do very, very rigorous sort of fact-based, evidence-based stuff. And I know that it'll take me forever to find the references if people try to counter me on that. And also I've probably thought of these things as I'm going through it. Like I've been asking these questions too. So usually I have that prepared already, and I've already thought about it and worked out what the real explanation is. The other thing is, yeah, because I really like long form content, I like to explain everything in lots of detail. And because I'm myth busting, yeah, there is going to be a lot of pushback, because these are often myths that people have believed for a really long time, and they have some emotional attachment to it. So yeah, I guess my strategy is to preempt it and try to go in with empathy and understand where other people are coming from and why they come from there, and then try to explain to them in a way that would appeal to them why that's not really the case. Yeah, so I think the times when I've gotten the most criticism is when I stray away from that, such as you might remember Fragrance Gate from, I think, is it 2 years? My God, I really need to do that video. I think Fragrance Gate was probably the biggest one, where I put out an opinion that was pretty contrary to what other people think, without having like a really well thought out argument, where I laid out all the evidence and, slowly guided people towards the same conclusion. yeah, that was a really good example of where I didn't do that well. And I still need to do that post because that is like a mega ordeal, to be honest. Jen, I'm sure you remember.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have at this point pretty thoroughly covered fragrance, and no matter how much information, no matter how many credible resources I offer people, there is a group of people that will just never change their mind and then just always think that I'm some shill or whatever else. And so I guess a learning lesson is no matter how hard you try, you're not going to convince everyone. Not everyone's going to like your content. Um, I like a lot of the points that you guys made, especially like there are valid criticism. There's valid criticism, and you should look at it and try to improve your content in the future. Also, if someone is correcting you with actual relevant information, then obviously take that for consideration and try to do better in the future. And if it's relevant to that specific post, then offer a correction and perhaps publicly correct. I think that's really important for people who are doing science communication to make public corrections when they are wrong, because being wrong is just a part of being human. It's okay to be wrong. And this is how we learn to do better in the future. I have had a lot of trolls. And so I would say that for me, growing a platform has required myself to have thicker skin and to learn how to disengage with comments. When people are commenting to me and being very troll like, I always respond like Gloria was mentioning earlier. I always respond in a positive way. I always try to my strategy is to convince. I know I'm not going to win this argument or debate with this person, but convince everyone else in the room of my points and still come across as a professional. It's okay if they don't change their mind, but perhaps you've changed someone else that was looking at the conversation. But I would say something that, especially if you're going to talk about more controversial topics, something that you're just going to have to do, especially as your platform gets larger. And I'm sure, Michelle, you can attest to this, is you're just going to have to learn how to disengage and to get a bit thicker skin. Something that I've experienced, and Michelle, I know you have as well, and I'd be curious to hear if anyone else has as well, is criticism from senior chemists in the industry who aren't necessarily refuting your content, but are refuting your experience as a reason you shouldn't be communicating. How do you deal with things like that? I know, like for me, myself, this has happened to me when I was a bit younger by a chemist that was much older than me. It certainly, for me, made me want to stop doing what I was doing because it was so upsetting. Obviously, I didn't, and I got thicker skin from the experience, but has this happened to any of you guys? And for someone who may experience something like that, would you offer them any suggestions? Michelle, because I know you do have experience with this, would you like to chime in?
I know exactly what you're talking about. And now that I think of it, I think a better, maybe a good reputation would have been just to send them like the Wikipedia page for ad hominem argument, where they're attacking the person rather than the argument. I don't know, like, it's always a challenging thing as in science communication. There's always a really vocal bunch of people who say you have no right to be saying and doing what you're doing because you don't work in the field and whatever. And I think maybe going into the science communication literature, like there are lots of articles about why science communication is important. And the main thing is people who are good at chemistry aren't necessarily good at communicating their chemistry. This is like a big thing with science a lot of the time is, I think there is a sort of thing where every scientist is meant to do some communication, but the fact is not every scientist is equipped for that. It's a completely different skill set. If you're good at one, chances are you haven't had a lot of time to develop your skills in the other. I think some people just don't grasp that. And I think it is partly because they're not good at communicating and they don't see it as like something that requires skill. I don't know what else we can do, honestly, apart from maybe ignore them and maybe, tell them every university has a science communication department. They spend a lot of money on it. If you don't think they need it, go talk to them and tell them to fire all their science communicators because they're doing it wrong. Yeah.
Unless anyone else has anything to chime in on that point, I will ask my next question, which is why should people do it? Why should cosmetic chemists check in and start an online account? Why should they do that? Gloria, would you like to start this one?
Sure. Honestly, I think one of the lowest points that I've been at doing chemist confessions is I feel like for every one of us, there's 10 of those natural mommy, like all natural, no toxic chemical here accounts. And it just feels like it's hard to mainstreamify skin science. It just feels like we are turning into still that kind of niche, kind of closed off community and having trouble broaching the general public just because um, the consensus out there is still the fear mongering vibe and everything else. So it felt really discouraging. So I do feel like the more the merrier, if the community of science communicator grows, that will only help fight misinformation. And the good thing is, I do think people are more curious about this world now, thanks to the good work that I think everyone here has been doing. We've gotten quite a few DMs and emails from people who know nothing about this world, and they're just curious. They've been fed a lot of misinformation, and now they want to look a little further. And I just think that the more content that's available for them, the better.
Cassandra, would you like to go next?
Sure. I feel if you really want to bring value to a platform, you should, and do it in your way. That's where you come off authentic, and that you actually do bring value to that community that you're targeting. But if you're just doing it just to do it, just to get followers or likes or whatever, then you shouldn't do it because you're not being authentic and you're doing a disservice to that community. I'm done speaking.
And Lolita?
Yeah, I think, why should we make an online platform? I mean, there's many reasons, but I think with the amount of misinformation online with skincare and science, there's just so many misleading claims from brands and individuals that just keep getting worse and worse and worse. And, if it weren't for all of us, on the stage here communicating all the information that we do, perhaps it would have been worse. So I hope that we're by communicating science online and having an online presence, we are able to help consumers make more educated purchases, purchase decisions. So I think having an online presence where you're really taking part in making decreasing the amount of misinformation online, which there still is so much. Like Gloria said, for every one of us, there's like 10 other, non-toxic, non-this, non-that skincare account pages out there. So I think by having an online presence, you can really, we can come together as a team and really try to fight that and stand up for science. I'm done speaking.
And Michelle?
Yeah, I think if you enjoy it and you feel like there is this need to dispel a lot of the pseudoscience out there, I think it's important. Also, just the rise of clean beauty, it is really concerning because it means that as a cosmetic formulator, you're going to have a lot less access to ingredients that are effective and safe because of this misinformation. I think it is always going to be an uphill battle because we're humans. Humans like stories that make sense to them. And all of our cognitive biases, they all tell us that natural is safer. We should go with things that are natural. We should avoid chemicals. And so it is a really big task to try to educate people about how it actually works. So yeah, I guess it is sort of like charity work, but at the same time, it does build towards this bigger thing at the end, which is you'll be making better beauty products for people that will actually work, and it will be like, I guess, a safer world, which perhaps is a bit lofty, but I think that is our end goal in all of this. It's to help people, and yeah.
And Esther?
I feel like everybody pretty much summed up the question pretty well. I don't really have much to add other than just fighting the misinformation. I think the biggest example of misinformation is TikTok. I think skincare TikTok is like some black hole. I don't know what is going on in that space, but it's just like every 5 seconds there's somebody regurgitating some myth from like decades ago, and it's really crazy. And I think the biggest thing is there's this one doctor around the time that I forgot who got into a lawsuit about the formaldehyde releasers, DMDM, hydantoin, and that caused a lot of controversy. People were throwing away their hair care products, and then Michelle, she debunked what he said very quickly. She uploaded it on TikTok and also on Instagram, and people were just like, oh, okay, I don't need to throw away my hair care products. They're perfectly safe. They're fine. And just because there's like a lawsuit or class action lawsuit doesn't mean that my products are bad. So it allowed people to critically think about the misinformation that they were hearing, and I cannot speak right now, sorry, allow them to think that not everything that they hear is true. So I think there's a lot of benefits to science communicating, and this is one of the reasons to do it, to allow consumers to not take everything that they hear at face value and to actually think about how we would think as scientists. So that's a great reason to go on to it. And also, consumers can't see everything that we see. We have a lot of insights because we are in the beauty industry. We are scientists. Not every consumer has that background, so a lot of them are very curious as to what we have to say, and they want the insight. So I think that's another reason to do it, to inform consumers that don't have access to. Oh my God, sorry guys, I can't speak. Access to this information that they wouldn't have on a regular basis. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
And I guess just to add is, especially if you have the ear of the consumer, or at least many consumers in your platform, I feel like you can help, I guess, improve the industry as a whole. If consumers are more informed about, for example, something that I'm very passionate about is sustainable development, except from like an evidence-based way. Something that really drives me insane is the pseudoscience and the quote green movement. And so if consumers know the right questions to ask, then perhaps they'll be inclined to ask brands who might take it upon themselves to do more substantiation to support their claims. And perhaps they may also request that from brand or ingredient suppliers. So I feel like you can have, especially if you have a larger platform, you can have an impact in the industry. And then the second part, actually, is if anyone has any questions, official Aisha, I probably said your name wrong. I've tried to invite you to speak. I'll try again, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand and I'll invite you to the stage. But the other side of why come online to communicate is it could be really great for your career. The network that I've built from, I guess, the way that I've built or done social media is it accommodates growing a network, because I just reach out to people constantly to ask them to do an interview with me or contribute information to my social media, or I even have some toxicologists that I'll refer to quite a lot to help fact check the information that I share. But because I have grown that network, I feel like it's helped me a long way in my own career. I do work as a consultant, so that helps with, I guess, the clients that I bring in. But if I didn't, I'm sure that that would have had impacts outside of my consulting work for example, job prospects, if you're doing a good job communicating science, especially if you want to get into science communication, which that is an emerging career option in the cosmetics industry. So I guess my final question to you guys was going to be, how can it help your career? Well, like I just feel like it's pretty obvious. Like it can. If you do a good job communicating science, you'll attract a lot of attention, which could bode for a lot of opportunities, whether that's speaking spots at conferences where you may hopefully get paid for that, or consulting opportunities, or working with different companies in a variety of different capacities. Finally, I've got you to the stage. Official, please tell me how to say your name. Would you like to ask your question or make your Aisha? Thank you
Yes.
for coming to the stage. Would you like to ask your question or make your comment?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. My name is Aisha, and I'm hoping to start my own beauty brand in a few years' time. So right now, I'm just doing my research and development, R&D stuff. So I'm trying to find more people to follow that are into makeup, because I see most times the formulators I find are people that are into skincare and stuff. So I'm really looking for makeup people and resources for me to be able to like build my lab and stuff.
Cassandra, don't you specialize partly in makeup development?
I'm sorry, my screen timed out. I had to log in. What was the question exactly? I heard part of it, but what is your question exactly? I know you want to start a brand, a beauty brand in a few years. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm looking for people that just work that specialize in makeup rather than skincare. Skincare is nice, don't get me wrong, but I'm trying to like focus more on the makeup side of things, so I can know like the stuff that needs to be known.
Are you going to formulate this yourself, or are you going to have a chemist formulate it for you?
I'm hoping to formulate it myself, but because I'm not into chemistry, I'm going to have to employ people to do that. But I'd like to build as much knowledge as I can before that time comes.
Okay. I know many other makeup artists as well, but chemists that specialize in formulating makeup as well as myself. So I can, if you want to just send me a message, I can help you out with that, and then I can give you their information also and see how they can help you.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And maybe I'll also say now, a lot of the times I think to become a member, you have to be a scientist, or at least hold a bachelor's of science for the Cosmetic or Society of Cosmetic Chemists. But you can also pay as a non-member to attend some of their webinars, and they have a number of webinars, prior webinars on makeup. If you follow along the different chapters, I'm talking about North America. I'm sure you can find the same kind of webinars globally as well, especially right now during the pandemic where everyone is doing webinars. There's just so many webinars out there, and typically as a non-member, it's something like $10 to attend. They're usually very informative. So I guess if you want to learn more from the Society of Cosmetic Chemists and chemists who are doing webinars in that group, then perhaps that could be another thing to look at. And I'll also give a shout out to the Society of Cosmetic Scientists. They just released actually like a year ago their Discovering Cosmetic Science book, which I would highly recommend purchasing. Now, it's not going to teach you everything about color cosmetics or skincare in general, or cosmetics, sorry, should I say in general, but they have a really great chapter on color cosmetics that gives an excellent overview. So I would just add that there are quite a few resources out there from the SCC and SCS.
Okay, thank you.
There's not really like a lot of color cosmetics on social media from my knowledge, and color cosmetics is very complex compared to skincare. I mean skincare is complex too, but color cosmetics is a whole another ball game. And I actually recommend this is one of my professors for my master's program. Her name is Jane Hollenberg. She has a book. I don't remember the title of the book, but she has a book. I highly recommend you purchasing it. And she's like an industry veteran in color cosmetics. I suggest you look her up and purchase her book, because she goes through it pretty in depth about all the nuances in color cosmetics. And but I also think that you need to see color cosmetics in person too, to have a better understanding before you start doing lab work too.
Yeah, I have to say this. If you go through social media or Instagram, you'll see a lot of people who are making like lipsticks and all this other stuff, and you're basically using a cheat sheet. It's simplified, DIY type of stuff, and it looks simple, but it's really not simple, and it's very messy. I do color cosmetics and hair color, and that's even more of a niche. So if that's something that you want to really get into, I would suggest, like Esther said, get that book and try to get as much resource, like Jen said, about color cosmetics. However, at the end of the day, if you're not a chemist and you don't really understand color chemistry, I don't know if you're a makeup artist either, because I work with a lot of makeup artists when developing their color, and it's easier for me even hair colorists. It's easy for me to understand them because of the language they speak. So you may want to have a makeup artist and a color chemist on your team.
Okay. Did you say Jane Hollenberg, or can you spell the surname for me, please?
Jane Hollenberg. Actually, I'll message you when this is over, so I can send you the exact textbook. I just don't remember the name. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Now, we just had one more question. I see it in the webinar chat. Feel free to raise your hand if you guys have questions. You can join us on the stage and ask us in the audio. But from Ire, I'm not sure if I said your name right, and you could correct me if you came to the stage. But the question was, how do you combat other professionals spreading misinformation, whether it's presented as quote unquote fact or their opinion? And this is something really, really challenging. Especially from physicians. I forget his name, the plastic surgeon that was talking about formaldehyde donors, or I see a lot of dermatologists chiming in about toxicology or regulations and getting it completely wrong. How do you guys deal with it? I guess I tried to politely refute the posts in their comments to try to have a conversation and let them know why I think maybe they're incorrect, but maybe that's not your strategy. So what do you guys think about that question?
Well, I have a lot of feels about that. I think at the end of the day, the natural mommy non-toxic movement, it's a bit further away from the skin science community, but the half truths are a lot harder to fight than just outright misinformation. And I think there are certain experts that's just they're experts in their field, but sometimes the general public isn't aware of people like chemists or toxicologists, that how detailed and segmented it can get. So it's very, very, very frustrating. And going back to your question, Jen, that's why I think if you are a good communicator and you're a lover of ingredient science and chemistry, you should definitely have a platform, because the reality is it's harder. It's honestly, I don't have a good solution, because it's their positioning as experts already make it that much harder to combat misinformation. So I just wanted to commiserate, that's it. And nothing grinds my gear more than that.
Anyone else want to chime in before Kirk asks his or their question or makes the comment?
Michelle, I think you should you should answer this because you're pretty eloquent with how you combat what some of, especially what some dermatologists say, because some of them do spread a lot of misinformation, especially when it comes to cosmetic science.
Oh, it's really tricky. So usually I try to reason with them, like I'll DM them or, leave a comment, like a reasonably polite comment under their post or something. I think my approach really depends on how big they are and what sort of platform they have and how, I guess, how I perceive their willingness to learn. Yeah, so if they seem like they've just made a tiny error and they're willing to learn, I'll DM them. If they have a huge platform and they've already got like 200 comments after their post, I'll probably comment on it, or even like do like a post counteracting that and maybe not tag them so it's like a bit ambiguous, but at least the correct information is out there. If they seem like just a complete like lost cause where they're really like stubborn and they're not going to listen, then I'll just do like direct content, like with the doctor, the plastic surgeon, and their preservative misinformation. So yeah, I think it's like try to understand where they're coming from and then see how best to get the correct information to people.
I completely agree with what Michelle was saying. I guess that kind of echoes my own strategy. Depending on the platform stage, sometimes I will go ahead and do kind of a debunking post. I used to tag the accounts in question, but now I have tried to focus just on the information and leave the accounts out of it. But it's really hard when someone has such a large account, especially when they have clout as a professional in a certain space, so that they have the credibility, and then the misinformation is just spreading like wildfire. And you go to the comments, it's quite disheartening. But that is also my strategy. Kirk, would you like to ask your question or make your comment? And this will be the last question or comment of the night.
Hello everyone, I'm Kirk. I'm from the Philippines. Have you ever experienced in your career in science communication, how do I say this? During your career as science communicators, you may have heard some brands marketing narratives because of the content that you're communicating. Have you ever encountered that scenario, and have those brands approach you, and how did you approach them?
I guess for me, I'll just maybe chime in. I know that some brands, especially some smaller brands, will use some of the content and share it in their social media, which I oftentimes they don't ask, but it's something that is elevating my platform, so I don't generally mind, especially if they're citing me. Sometimes I do enter agreements with brands where they will interview me and then use quotes from myself in their marketing. I've worked with a few brands, for example, like addressing like how does a serum work? How does what are emollients? What are X? And then they'll just make infographic based off of what I've said, and then we have an agreement. So if it's something like that, then that's something that would require an agreement, especially if they're profiting off of it in some way. But if they're, I guess the latter would have been potentially profiting. But if like I see that as trying to share accurate information, and the more the merrier in my books in that case. What do the rest of you guys think? Or has this happened to you? Michelle, I know you have worked with quite a few brands in this capacity. I think Gloria, you guys were telling me that you had as well.
Yeah, we've worked with a few brands, and I think everyone's style is probably different. For us, we try to what we like to do is we work with brands that are willing to share a more in-depth insider view to their product development process. I think the more notable one we did recently is Algenus sent us a lot of their data and wanted to do IG Live. And I agree with you, Jen. I think the more the merrier. If they're willing to share, it's really great. We do vet, and sometimes we've been approached by brands who don't necessarily align with our value, or they're not willing to share their data, and we just walk away from that. Just try to keep it simple.
Yeah, so I guess the way I pick brands to collaborate with, it's always my litmus test is if someone who cannot possibly buy their products, if they come across this sponsored piece of content, and like, will they actually learn something useful? Yeah, so that's usually my litmus test. I want it still to have value to someone, even if it's not in the service of marketing that brand. So one thing I have noticed though is that if you do sponsored posts with brands, they give you access to a lot more information. And like from a completely selfish perspective, I like seeing all the like how things work behind the scenes. So yeah, they tend to give you a lot more access. And I think that does also give a lot more value to like the general audience as well, even if they can't possibly buy that product. So for example, when I worked with Neutrogena, they let me talk to two of their like top of their sunscreen department. And I could ask all these questions that I've always wondered about that I could never get answers to because, you know, like Johnson and Johnson, they're not going to just randomly answer questions from a random blogger. Yeah, so yeah, that's my litmus test. It's always, is it educational and accurate? If a brand asks me to say something that's not accurate, I'll usually I suss it out well before we agree to do anything. I'm really careful. I try to suss it out as much as I can. I try to suss out if the brand is also responsive to feedback. If they are responsive, then even if their messaging's not quite right, I try to talk to them through it and, you know, maybe see if I can try to educate them through the collaboration, if that makes sense. There are actually a few clean beauty brands who have approached me now, and quite a few large ones too. And they actually seem to be willing to listen, which is kind of amazing. But also, yeah, it's really difficult to navigate that. There was actually a deodorant brand who contacted me and they said, we just read all your aluminium stuff about how aluminium is safe. And now we want to market our natural deodorant, but we want to do it in a way that's like matches the science. Except when I looked at their website, all of it was still based on that aluminium fear mongering. So yeah, that was like a no-go. Yeah, I think you have to just try to work out what is still authentic to what you're doing and still try to stay accurate.
I feel like we can talk a lot longer, but we're already 16 minutes over time. Thank you guys for donating so much of your time to this conversation, going over time with me. Thank you to our audience for joining in. Do you guys have any topic suggestions, either to our panelists or our audience? Either let me know aside or let me know in the webinar chat. Leave your topic suggestions and then we'll take it up for consideration for next week. This conversation has been recorded. I'm going to be publishing it tomorrow on our YouTube. But I guess that's all for tonight. Thank you. Thank you guys for participating and thank you to our audience members.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everyone.
the invite,
Good night.
Jen. It was fun.